We have so far devoted 2 sessions to Ashwapati's Yoga, particularly the first part of Ashwapati's Yoga. In the first talk, I tried to trace, but for lack of time didn't make much progress, the various phases of Ashwapati's progress. One can do that through Cantos 3 and 5. These 2 cantos describe the various stages through which Ashwapati progresses. Then, during the final hour, I refer to certain other kinds of passages which give us what I would regard as quintessential spiritual attitude. Why is it the attitude of surrender is so important? Why is it that one must always have an inner reference point in life? How, if you look merely on the surface of life and try to make sense of events that take place on the surface, there is hardly any coherence. We get baffled, and then we realize that the outer happenings, outer events have their own logic, but this is the logic in terms of the development of our inner being. So we are primarily here in this life not to grab what happiness we can or what unhappiness we have to go through, but primarily for the evolution of our inner being. If that is the primary thing, then you can see everything in life falls into place. Now today, I would like to turn my attention to something else, same 3 cantos, and that is some wonderful passages which one must make note of. Some of them directly refer to yogic practices. For example, a passage on page 47. But before that, I would like you to draw your attention. I would like you to look at the titles of Canto 3, 4 and 5. Notice Canto 3 is called the Yoga of the King. Canto 5 is also called the Yoga of the King. But Canto 4 is not called the Yoga of the King. In other words, the actual Yoga of Ashwapati's is described in Cantos 3 and 5. What then is Canto 4? Canto 4, as the title suggests, indicates, is the secret knowledge that Ashwapati acquires as a result of his yogic progress. So what is the knowledge that he gets because of his advancement in yoga? Now this is a wonderful chapter in many ways. It's a very brief summary of the life divine, and if you are asked to show a modern Upanishad, probably you can cite passages from this canto. The wonderful cantos. Since we don't have much time, I will be like a tourist guide, can only indicate to you, look at that and look at this and look at this and look at that. But I will try to read a couple of passages, and if we have time, more than a couple. The first passage I would like to look at is on page 47. This is a very well-known passage which describes the process of meditation. What exactly is meditation? How does meditation take place? 3 lines from the bottom. I don't think an elaborate explanation, commentary is necessary, because if I try to do that, I will not be able to say anything about the other passages, so I will be very brief. In moments when the inner lamps are lit and the life's cherished guests are left outside, These two beautiful lines sum up the inner posture needed for meditation. There are moments when the inner lamps are lit. Most of the time, our inner lamps are switched off. We don't even know that there are inner lamps. It's only human consciousness has a tendency to run outward. And we find various excuses to occupy outgoing consciousness. If nothing else, we read the newspaper, we've already read 5 times, the 6th time. Because newspaper is a very convenient way of focusing your attention, and you feel you are doing something, you are finding something. Or pick up the fattest novel at the airport, when you are traveling and you are expecting to have to spend a night in some hotel. You will be bored, you are afraid of being bored, and when you are bored, the chances are, after you are exhausted everything, you may turn within. In order to avoid that, we pick up this trashiest of novels, the thickest of novels, and this is how human beings have a tendency always to look out, and that's the reason the person we know the best is our neighbor, and the person we know the least is ourselves. There is no natural inclination for man to turn within, and unless that happens, why do you have to turn within? Because you are there when the din of the surface consciousness is silenced. When that noise is silenced, then the inner being's voice is heard. You realize there is someone there. He is all the time trying to talk to us, but there is this marketplace our mind has created, and that din is so boisterous, so noisy, that this voice is hardly heard. So meditations are sessions when one turns one's consciousness within and tries to feel the presence of this inner being. What happens when the mind goes in? How you slowly discover the inner being. And the inner being itself is described on page 49, about 6-7 lines from the top. A treasure of honey in the combs of God, a splendor burning in a tenebrous cloak. It is our glory of the flame of God. The Upanishads describe it, Jyotisham Jyotihi. It's the light of lights. Hiranmaye pare koshe virajam brahma nishkalam. That's how it is described. Tat shubram jyotisham jyotishi. Tat yat atma vido viduhu. One who knows the Atman knows this flame. And this is the flame that is described here. That the flame, the light, the presence that is inside us, our golden fountain of the world's delight, and immortality cowled in the cape of death, the shape of our unborn divinity. It guards for us our fate in depths within, where sleeps the eternal seed of transient things. Always we bear in us a magic key, concealed in life's hermetic envelope, a burning witness in the sanctuary, regards through time and the blind walls of form. A timeless light is in his hidden eyes. He sees the secret things no words can speak, and knows the goal of the unconscious world and the heart of the mystery of the journeying years. If you want to find out why you are here, what is it that you have to do in this life? It's not enough to consult your mind, it's not enough to consult career books, career guide and all that kind of thing, that's also necessary. But your primary purpose of being here is to ask that guide there, that witness there, that burning flame there, and bring that to the front and make that the leader of our pilgrimage in this life. That is what happens. That is the purpose of going within. You must have seen programs on TV and so on when psychologists are asked, does life have any meaning? Without batting an eyelid, they say life has no meaning. You live your life as best you can. Maybe some pleasant moments, you just carry on from day to day. There is no goal, there is no reference point if you concentrate on the outer events. Therefore he says, a goalless voyage seems our dubious course. Some chance has settled or or hazarded some will, or a necessity without aim or cause, unwillingly compelled to emerge and be. In this dense field where nothing is plain or sure, our very being seems to us questionable. People say there is a soul, there is a being. Where is it? No doctor has ever discovered it. They have cut the heart, they have cut the brain, they have cut the intestines, but they haven't found it. Where is it? So, very often we are told, our very being seems to us questionable. Our life a vague experiment, the soul a flickering light in a strange, ignorant world, the earth a brute mechanic accident. The earth itself is a brute mechanic accident. And once this accident took place, Newton's laws have determined everything for all times to come. There is nothing here. Everything is determined. Someday it will go on ticking and ticking. Someday it will all explode, or it will all slow down, cool down, and life will disappear, and your life and my life here will have no significance, no meaning at all. The earth a brute mechanic accident, and Sri Aurobindo puts it beautifully, a net of death in which by chance we live. A net of death, by chance we live. Well, there are so many things I could say, but I won't. There is another beautiful passage I would just like to draw your attention to, page 50. This is a description beginning about 8-9 lines from the bottom. I will just read the opening 2-3 lines. Along a path of aeons serpentine, in the coiled blackness of a nascent course, the earth goddess toils across the sands of time. The earth goddess is going round and round across the sands of time. This is the evolutionary movement is described here, and you and I are a part of this earth goddess's movement, and she is going, he describes it later, alarmed by the sorrow dragging at her feet, and last line of that page, and conscious of the high things not yet won, ever she nurses in her sleepless breast an inward urge that takes from her rest and peace. There is no rest and peace. The evolutionary impetus keeps moving, keeps prodding. Already it has come thus far. Where is it headed? Which direction is it going? On page 51, the last 5-6 lines, outstretching arms to the unconscious void, passionate she prays to invisible forms of gods, soliciting from dumb fate and toiling time what most she needs, what most exceeds her scope. What is it? A mind unvisited by illusion's gleams, a will expressive of soul's deity, a strength not forced to stumble by its speed, a joy that drags not sorrow as its shade. This is what evolutionary earth is hoping to acquire. But for these she yearns and feels them destined hers. There is some conviction that these can be acquired, and that is why with this hope it is pushing on and on. Heaven's privilege she claims as her own right. Just is her claim, the all-witnessing gods approve, clear in a greater light than reason owns. Our intuitions are its title deeds. Our souls accept what our blind thoughts refuse. Earth's winged chimeras are truth's steeds in heaven. He says the most fanciful idea that man will one day be immortal. The man will one day be able to get rid of all pain and suffering. These are all now, look, fanciful chimeras, all fanciful ideas. And the poet says, they are truth's steeds in heaven. They are in fact the steeds, the horses which truth rides in heaven. They are not fanciful ideas. That's what people kept saying, or even now keep saying. Sri Aurobindo wants to make man ready such that there will be no death, there will be no sorrow. Is it ever possible? Oh, all fancies. What a great dreamer. That's why he says, earth's winged chimeras are truth's steeds in heaven, the impossible, God's sign of things to be. Anything that man hopes for, the human collectivity has hoped for, has behind it some truth, and it will materialize. It's only a question of time. Well, there is another beautiful passage. There are so many here on page 55. As I said yesterday, I guess, Sri Aurobindo always talks about a sudden divine advent. The divine intervention is very sudden. It doesn't give notice, there is no fanfare, there is nothing at all. And so here he describes how the transcendent, the reality that is now transcendent, will come down and establish its kingdom here on earth. Page 55. Thus will the masked transcendent mount his throne. I have not given you the full context, but the sheer poetry of it doesn't require the whole of the context for you to appreciate it, so I'll just read it. When darkness deepens, strangling the earth's breast, and man's corporeal mind is the only lamp, as a thief's in the night shall be the covert tread of one who steps unseen into his house. How does God come in? God comes in as a thief's in the night shall be the covert tread of one who steps unseen into his house. A voice ill heard shall speak, the soul obey, a power into mind's inner chamber steal, a charm and sweetness open life's closed doors, and beauty conquer the resisting world. When God comes here, you can't resist him. His beauty will conquer you. Beauty conquer the resisting world. The truth light capture nature by surprise. A stealth of God compel the heart to bliss, and earth grow unexpectedly divine. In matter shall be lit the spirit's glow, in body and body kindle the sacred birth. Night shall awake to the anthem of the stars, the days become a happy pilgrim march, our will a force of the eternal spar, and thought the rays of a spiritual sun. And then he says, a few shall see what none yet understands. God shall grow up while the wise men talk and sleep, for man shall not know the coming till its hour, and belief shall be not till the work is done. I thought you should know this passage, beautiful, wonderful passage. There are so many of these. Another very favorite, it's in fact the notion of Purusha and Prakriti, which comes in Sankhya. Subsequently in Vedanta, this whole notion is taken up and certain refinement is added to it. Sri Aurobindo takes it up and adds further refinement to it. So here, for several pages, he describes this creation as a play between the Purusha and the Prakriti. It's a Leela between Purusha and Prakriti. Except that there is this difference. Leela is after all a game. So very often people say, if life is a game, does it matter how we play it? After all, it's a game, isn't it? Why all this seriousness and why all this attempt? The mind is not adequate, we must have the super mind. Why is it? After all, this is a game. So game, you just play and forget all about it. True. But notice, take the game of football. 22 chaps chasing one ball. If somebody were to say this is a very pathetic sight, 22 fellows chasing one ball, all hefty fellows, why don't you give them half a dozen balls? This is a big Maidan, there are 22 hefty fellows, let them chase the 6 balls. Suppose if you make football like this, 6 balls being kicked about, and Mohan Bagan and East Bengal, these two teams play, do you think they will be able to sell even one single ticket? I don't think so. Football is a game, all right, but there are rules by which this game can be played. Only then it is a game. Similarly, cricket is a game. But why is it? People with a very weak heart condition are not supposed to listen to the commentary or watch the TV presentation of India playing Pakistan. Generally because India loses. That's maybe the reason. But notice how much interest it creates. Blood coursing up and down your veins, possibility of heart failure. What makes this game so tantalizing? What makes this game so exciting? Well, 2 things. One is, the rules are very strictly adhered to, and we always keep a tab of how many runs and how many wickets. Runs have to be scored, wickets have to be taken, and the game has to play it according to certain rules. Only then the game becomes interesting. It's not somehow you play, somehow you just go there and just while away your time. Similarly, although this is a game of becoming, this is the Lord's becoming here. This entire creation is the Lord's becoming. It's not enough if the becoming is somehow becoming. This becoming has to be according to certain rules, and there are certain objectives to be achieved. What is the objective? Well, in the becoming, the Lord decided that He will become the very opposite of spiritual glory, which is inconscient matter. And out of inconscient matter, slowly, gradually, the one becomes many, and we are all clay gods. You are all clay gods. We are all gods in the making. And so these gods have to further progress. We have come up to the mind. We have seen what a mess we have made of life with the mind. Mind, of course, is a wonderful instrument. We have built civilization, we have created poetry, we have created science, we have gone to the moon. But we have also created a mess of this life. That's what mind is. And therefore, if you look at man, you can see God's becoming is not yet complete. And so what Sri Aurobindo is saying, to bring this becoming to completion, to bring this becoming to perfection, we need another level of consciousness. So, this becoming is also important. Being, of course, is the ultimate. But when you come to creation, when you come to this world, we are talking about becoming. This entire creation is the becoming of God. And this becoming of God is not as if it has no aim. Just as A game also has a name. You have to, if it is football, you have to score goals. If it is cricket, you have to take runs, you have to take wickets. Similarly, this creation is a being and it's a becoming. And this becoming, therefore, is going towards, proceeding towards this goal of perfection. And so, although it's a play, although it is Leela, in which the Purusha and Prakriti chase each other, but this is a progressively manifesting game, a progressively unfolding miracle. That is the idea that Sri Aurobindo adds. It's not just Purusha and Prakriti just playing around, but Purusha is also interested and Prakriti is also interested in this perfection that is to come about, that is to happen to the becoming. And that idea, all over this particular canto, as you can see on page 60, all here, where each thing seems its lonely self, are figures of the soul transcendent one. Only by him they are, his breath is their life. Everything here, he says, everything in this world is made of that one supreme reality. Even this body, even this so-called matter is made of that supreme. There is nothing here except the one absolute reality. But when it comes to creation, when it comes to this, an unseen present molds the oblivious clay, a playmate in the mighty mother's game, one came upon the dubious whirling globe to hide from her pursuit in force and form. The Purusha and the Prakriti, the divine reality, as it were, splits into two aspects. The Purusha aspect, which is the consciousness, and the Prakriti, which is force, which is nature. And so, there is this hide and seek between the Purusha and the Prakriti. They chase each other in several forms, and this whole thing, from page 60 almost until the end of this particular canto, we have a description of the play between the Purusha and the Prakriti. Take, for example, line on page 63, where a new section begins. This is the knot that ties together the stars. The two who are one are the secret of all power. The two, Purusha and Prakriti, they are not eternally two. They are basically one, but for the play, for the manifestation, they look like two. The two who are one are the secret of power. The two who are one are the might and right in things. His soul, silent, supports the world and her. His acts are her commandments' registers. Happy, inert, he lies beneath her feet. She performs a dance on his body. Happy, inert, he lies beneath her feet. His breast he offers for her cosmic dance. The Supreme Divine Mother is performing the cosmic dance where? On the prone body of the Lord. Of which our lives, where is this great dance performed? Of which our lives are the quivering theatre. The Lord's, the Mother's dance, the expression of this dance is your life and my life. Our lives are the quivering theatre in which this dance takes place. And none could bear but for his strength within, and yet none would leave because of his delight. Why is it? Some lives are happy, some lives are miserable, we know this, but yet how is it that nobody wants to leave and go away? Because there is this delight in this dance. Therefore, that's what he says. None could bear but for his strength within. Life we won't be able to even bear if it were not for the fact that it's constantly being supported by the divine Purusha, and yet none would leave because of his delight. And many such passages. I would like you to read this and enjoy the great poetry here. Again, page 66, about 10 lines from the top. All she can do is marvelous in his sight. He revels in her, a swimmer in her sea, a tireless amateur of her world delight. He rejoices in every thought and act, and gives consent to all that she can wish. Whatever she desires, he wills to be. The Spirit, the innumerable one, he has left behind his lone eternity. He is an endless birth in endless time, her finite multitude in an infinite space. Then comes a very beautiful section which I would regard almost like a new Upanishad in its poetry, in its charmed expression and its revelation. This is on page 66, where a new section begins. The master of existence lurks in us and plays at hide and seek with his own force. In nature's instrument loiters secret God. The immanent lives in man as in his house. He has made the universe his pastimes field, a vast gymnasium of his works of might. All-knowing, he accepts our darkened state. God, all-knowing, he has accepted our ignorant state. All-knowing accepts our darkened state. Divine wears shapes of animal or man. One who was divine can become the crocodile, can become the monkey, can become the horse, can become anything at all. Everything here is the divine. When Charles Darwin pointed out to the Western world that man didn't descend directly from God, but he descended from the monkey, the ape, everybody felt shocked, and the Bibles were thrown away, churches were closed down. You come to India and tell people that man has come down from the monkey, nobody will even look surprised. He says, Hanuman we have always worshipped as God. Why Hanuman? We have worshipped Meena Matsya Avatar, Kurma Avatar. God created all these things. If God can create fish, can't God become a fish? So, the everything here, the divine, he has become, wears shapes of animal or man. Eternal, he ascends to fate and time. Immortal, dallies with mortality. He plays with mortality here. The all-conscious ventured into ignorance. The all-blissful bore to be insensible. That is how this world began. This is the holocaust of the supreme. The divine took a plunge, as it were, into the very heart of the inconscient and became his exact opposite. Incarnate in a world of strife and pain, he puts on joy and sorrow like a robe and drinks experience like a strengthening wine. And then he says, he whose transcendence rules the pregnant fasts. God is transcendent, divine is transcendent, the divine is universal, and yet the divine is individual. The same divine who fills the entire universe, who transcends the universe, goes beyond the universe, he is also found in his entirety in each one of us. That's the logic of the infinite. So you will say, if the whole divine is found in each one of us, and we are in this hall, how many people? About 250 people? 300 people? So are there 300 divines here? No, there is only one divine. Because with the divine's case, 1 plus 1 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 1. So that's the logic here. So the divine who is transcendental, the divine who is universal, the whole of that divine, entirety, is also present in the individual. That's what he says. He whose transcendence rules the pregnant vasts, prescient now dwells in our subliminal depths, a luminous individual power alone. The absolute, the perfect, the alone, has called out of the silence's mute force, where she lay in the featureless and formless hush, guarding from time by her immobile sleep the ineffable puissance of his solitude. The absolute, the perfect, the alone, has entered with his silence into space. He has fashioned these countless persons of one self. The one self multiplied itself and became all these selves. He has fashioned these countless persons of one self. He has built 1,000,000 figures of his power. He lives in all who lived in his vast alone. Space is himself and time is only he. Space and time are also aspects of the divine.